Hi everyone, this is Dreier of StreamingMedia.com coming to you from NAB 2015. We're talking with several of the newsmakers at the show, and I'm very pleased to be joined here with Keith Wymbs, Chief Marketing Officer of Elemental Technologies. Always great to talk to you, Keith.
Thanks for having me, Troy.
So you guys had some significant customer announcements at this show that I want to dive into.
Actually, on Saturday, we had a press event where Jennifer Lung from MSNBC came to talk about their work with MSNBC Shift. So Shift is a new channel. It's a completely digital channel that's designed and targeted for the under 35 demographic. And obviously that has a lot of IP at stake. So they're doing all the delivery via different devices. So on PCs, tablets, smartphones, different devices like that. And it's all powered by Elemental Live and Elemental Delta. Elemental Delta is a product line that we launched. It's a smart origin solution that we announced at IBC, and it's been adopted by a number of the major operators as well as the programmers in the space. And she was able to tell how they're using that to generate basically live and VOD content for their application.
And I remember Delta's not that old either, because I covered that.
Yeah, it's only been 6 months in the market now. We launched at IBC with CNN Go as an application that's utilizing it. It's been disclosed that Microsoft Xbox uses Elemental Delta as well.
Explain what Delta is.
So Delta is an advanced origin solution. So it does just-in-time packaging, it does just-in-time DRM, so that you don't have to store all the different versions of content that you're going to utilize to get to all the devices out there. It does advanced advertising capabilities. It can customize advertising, not necessarily on a per-user basis, but on a particular profile of user. So for the mom in the house, if she's watching certain shows, or a kid who's into sports, you're only going to deliver sports content for that ad, as well as recommendation engines and whatnot.
So the MSNBC announcement was what exactly?
So it was that we're powering MSNBC Shift.
Okay.
So Shift is their digital channel. It's an over-the-top service. It is not a TV Everywhere app, so anyone has access to it.
Sure.
And it's really for the demographic that's under 35. It's their way of saying we're going to produce content for that demographic, and we're going to deliver it to devices, which is what they tend to look at. They're not going through a traditional linear route. They're not putting it into a cable lineup, for instance. So it's a complete streaming service.
And is it a news channel?
It's news. It's somewhat entertainment as well. So it's lifestyle, things like that. It's not just strictly news. It's a little bit more broad than that, but it's not sports per se.
Okay, it's hard to believe, but I'm over 35. Now, can I watch Shift? Is that okay?
Yeah, no, okay. Anyone can go to, I don't remember the URL exactly. I'm going to guess it's msnbc.com/shift to see an example of it.
Go to Google.
Go to Google, you'll find it.
And you had another youth-oriented announcement, right, with Red Bull this time.
Yeah, so Red Bull Media House is a really interesting provider of content. They do a lot of extreme sports, a lot of very cool, creative, artistic. I view it as, it's not just media, it is true art, completely artistic based. And so we did a demonstration actually of 4K P60 real-time encoding with HEVC technology. So that's the next generation of codec, as you know. There have been a lot of demonstrations over the last year or so, I would say, of real-time encoding. In this particular instance for this show, what we're doing is we're live encoding in Austria at what they call the hangar. It is their production facility in Austria. We're live encoding it in 4K P60, 10-bit HEVC wrapped in MPEG Dash. And then it's delivered over the internet via Akamai to the show floor. And then it's decoded on a Samsung TV set on their native app for 4K.
Were you showing this at your booth?
We were showing it at the booth and at the Akamai booth. So it was front and center at the Akamai booth. During the times when there weren't live content, we were playing out replays of their amazing content as well. So it wasn't live all the time because of the time zone difference.
And you were telling me you were able to do this live encoding with less equipment, less
hardware?
Yeah,
so over the course of the last 2 years, we've been innovating very much in terms of our 4K HEVC processing. We started out doing a frame rate of 30 frames a second. We increased it to 60 frames a second. But to do that originally, we had to bond essentially two encoders together. So for us, it was 2 rack units that would sit in a rack. They were bonded together. That's okay. It's good for demonstrations. It's good for proof of concept trials. But we've now gotten to the point where we've optimized our software and we can fit it in a single rack unit. So that's a single appliance. There's no connection between those units. It's a lot. It's a peace of mind type of thing for the industry, and it can reduce the overall cost structure for 4K processing.
And nobody else is doing this with a single unit.
No, I mean, what we see out there is typically when we're competing, there aren't many that are real-time 4K HEVC P60 encoders. If they are out there, they're upwards of 7 rack units, so it's a lot more space, a lot more power. So we're the first to get there in a single rack unit.
A lot less cost, right?
Yeah, it's still expensive. 4K is definitely expensive, but obviously if you're reducing equipment, you have additional flexibility on the cost side.
What was the content they were streaming?
The content that they were streaming when I was looking at it was a bar scene. So it was
An
two
extreme
women.
bar?
No, it had a lot of Red Bull in it. So it was 2 women that were making cocktails in a very well-lit environment. It was a lot of glass. It was a cool bar scene essentially at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I think Elemental, I always think pushing the envelope. You're always doing next 5 years technology today.
Yeah.
What do you see coming from your vantage point? What's next?
I think the real thing that I'm seeing is more consumer behavior oriented. So this idea that I think traditional video delivery is dominated by live linear content, by broadcast essentially. A lot of the new kind of work that's going on is around subscription, VOD, and the experience that Netflix is obviously driving. And I think the fusion of those two things, the fusion and the unification of live content, maybe it's sports content, maybe it's news, with on-demand, whether it's clips or past highlights, and making it very relevant to that user is where the industry is going, particularly in an app-delivered video environment. That's what consumers want, and it's starting to drive a little bit the infrastructure consolidation, live, linear, with on demand, and how do you do that the most cost effectively, very efficiently, and something that's the most relevant to that consumer. That's where I see it going.
So it's time to really put the consumer first and provide the better experience.
I think so. I think we've gotten through kind of the technology. Will the technology work? Will it scale? We've gotten through that. I think it's basically we're at that point. But then the question is, who's going to compete now for the consumer's time? It's precious. And really that bringing together of the environment where as you're watching something live, if you are interested, what are all the on-demand types of elements? How do you enhance that experience for the user?
In a way that is enhancing but not cluttering.
Exactly. Keeping it simple is very important.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait. That sounds like a good future and good goals for the industry. Thank you very much for joining me, Keith. This is Troy Dreier signing off from National Association of Broadcasters, NAB 2015.